Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, the man who invented the deathbed confession, my brother Mike.
Yeah, I've some messed up stuff I've heard people say, and I got a real doozy cooked up for when it's my time to go too. So that's going to be
That's
fun.
nice. That's nice.
It's
Hold
like
on, Mike, real
Brooklyn
quick.
Nine-Nine. I'm going to settle all my feuds right there at the end. It's going to be fantastic.
We might accidentally be live streaming. Not entirely sure, but yeah, well, don't even worry about that. I hope not.
If you're seeing us on YouTube right now, then hi.
Then hi, welcome to it. I got a really
We are
quick check to make sure
technologically
that's not.
inept.
Well, I'm not going to blame myself all the time. It could be that that the platform we use is not functioning correctly. We'll see here in a second. I don't see anything happening. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about the Royals either way. On this week's episode, we're going to review what was truly a dark week. Yeah, you'd rather us deal with the technical issues first than talk about the week that they had last week. Trust me on this one. Like,
Nothing
it's not
is going right.
No, our technology's not working. The offense isn't working. It's all part of the same stuff. But we are going to look back at that really dark week of Royals baseball. We're going to discuss the best options for getting the Royals offense going. I know we're talking a lot about offense these days, but let's face it, they're the problem child, and they get 90% of the attention as a result. And so we're going to talk a little about the offense, and then we're going to preview this week's series against the Rockies and Astros, two very important series coming off the back of a 2-10 stretch or whatever they are. We'll cover all those bases during the episode today. Make sure that you're subscribed to that Royals Weekly Substack. We put out a bunch of content this week. We put out a midweek episode for Substack subscribers. We put out a Mike's Dropped episode to preview that Tiger series. And then I came out with I think, very interesting post about Nick Lofton and sort of whether or not his offensive performance will he's kind of changed his approach at the plate and changed up his offensive profile, whether or not that can stick around. I am checking just at the moment to see if we have any Apple Podcast review this week. Sorry, I forgot to do this part as well.
You're allowing these technology issues. You're not prepared with the Apple Podcast reviews.
I know.
Am I going to do a hostile takeover of this podcast?
Trust me, you do not want to. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed to that Royals Weekly Substack. We're coming out with a bunch of extra stuff. I actually kind of want to do a promotion, and Mike and I are going to talk about that here in a little bit, hopefully, about some sort of giveaway, some sort of something for our paid Substack subscribers. We're loving all the support we're getting from you all. So also make sure you're rating and reviewing Apple Podcast reviews. I will read them on the episode, but we keep not getting them. So if you listen on Apple Podcast, get on there. Tell us what you think. Make sure it's 5 stars because that helps. But if you hate us, why are you listening? But anyway, you can leave a review too if you want. Free country and all that. We'll start the review of last week with roster news like we always do. There was really only one bit of roster news that's worth talking about. It came yesterday when MJ Melendez was demoted to AAA Omaha and Mark Canha was brought back from the injured list. Mike, a lot of people have been waiting for this for a long time. You and I have been talking about it for a couple weeks at least. What are your thoughts on MJ finally going down to Omaha and getting Mark Canha back?
Had to happen for the MJ move. There wasn't anything he was showing that was improvement on what has been an offensive performance that's been in steady decline for several years. You know, he comes in with a new swing this season that has the exact same hole in it at the top of the zone, and he is performing at a level that not only was not Major League Baseball, I'm not sure it was AAA worthy either. And so, yeah, it had to happen for the MJ move. You want good things. You want him to make an improvement. You want him to fix something. But I look at that swing. I look at the offensive profile and ability, and I think it's a long road to travel to fix MJ Melendez offensively at this point. And I don't know that the Royals have the time or are equipped to do so.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're equipped to do so. I think what's interesting about MJ is you would love his approach on a hitter. You absolutely cannot stand the inability to make contact in the zone as a hitter. And so his is all about kind of the swing and the capacity to make contact with the ball when it's in the zone, to make quality contact. Unlike other Royals, his hitters MJ's problem isn't an aggression problem. He's not overly aggressive and that kills him. It's just that he doesn't make enough good quality contact. And what led to something like a 40% strikeout rate, it led to a huge infield fly ball rate. He was having nothing but problems. And what's interesting is when you look at sort of the team's numbers and metrics and things like that as a whole, you always have in the back of your mind that MJ Melendez is dragging them down to some significant degree, right? So if you look at their weak fly ball rate. Like MJ Melendez hits a lot of fly balls, pulls a lot of fly balls. And so normally you would say like, hey, he hits the ball in the air a lot and he pulls it. Great. Problem is they're the type of contact that is virtually useless. He hits it like a 60-degree launch angle, so it's so high in the air, it's never leaving the park. It's easy to get under. Or like he doesn't hit it very hard at all and it ends up being like a very easy out. And so, yeah, I think you're already feeling that difference in the lineup today. You had Cano in there. I think he got 2 hits. Was on base a couple times, came through.
Almost hit a double to right too. It was just barely.
One of those hits was
barely foul too.
One of those hits was I believe, a game tying RBI, scoring Bobby Witt Jr. And so, a guy who, at least when he's up there, yeah, the potential offensively is not off the charts for Mark Cano. He's on the downside of his career, all that sort of stuff. But it's a professional plate appearance, and right now, my firstborn for a professional plate appearance from this group, and so I'll take it.
I was watching the game today with our mother, and I told her there's 2 people taking professional at-bats right now in the Royals lineup. It's Bobby Witt Jr., and even then, he's still chasing because that's just the profile he has. Just the profile he has. He's going to be aggressive, but at least you can kind of see that there's a plan in place. And Michael Garcia is taking better plate appearances than anybody else. If Michael Garcia is taking the best plate appearances you have on your team, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble.
No bueno. No bueno. Yeah, that's rough.
I will say this. I have been extremely pleasantly surprised with the plate appearances that he's taken so far this year.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, the rest of them look so bad.
They look real bad. They look bad. On the field last week, things were really awfully dark. I mean, there's no way to put it. I guess it was darker if you were following the games on Twitter. Then it was real dark at times. The Royals played 7 games, got only 1 win, so they went 1-6. They were swept by the Yankees in New York and then lost 3 of 4 to the Tigers before salvaging a very little dignity in Game 4. Mike, where are you at with this absolute shit show we call a baseball team?
So the biggest thing is that we've seen this play out before. Okay, we've seen this exact thing happen, and it was after Vinny Pasquantino got hurt last year. That's what the whole rest of the season was. It was good pitching and an offense that could not do anything.
The Royals had a very long losing streak last year, too. Do you remember this, Mike? 7 games they lost in September.
Yeah.
After Vinny Pasquantino went down, 7 in a row.
And I remember going, it just happened to be that while we were losing those 7 games, the teams we were competing against for the wild card were also losing.
Boston and,
so it was like,
they were also losing.
It worked out okay.
The Twins.
But we saw it at the end of last year. And what it really brings about in me is this. I want a complete overhaul of the hitting development system. Like we saw with the pitching a couple years ago, we have created, and I understand why they've gone for this for so long. Their thought process is this. Every Major League Baseball team wants to build an offensive lineup that suits the park that they play in. And so the Royals think, wrongly, that because they play in a bigger ballpark that suppresses home runs but amplifies some of the other gap-style power, that putting the ball in play is the way to go, right? Aggressive hitters that make a lot of contact and put it in play, and then you're going to run the bases and things like that. To me, that is still very flawed thinking, right?
It's over-learning the lesson of 2015 is what it's
exactly doing. That too, yeah, because that's what happened. But the other thing that happened was fantastic starting pitching and the best bullpen, one of the best bullpens in Major League history, And so, and you have to understand, the team was best when they brought in professional hitter Kendrys Morales. That's what did it in 2015. And so, I don't know. You got to get away from this. We're going to be aggressive and put the ball in play bullshit, because what it gets you is it produces hitters like Michael Massey, who was never forced to be less aggressive in minor league baseball and therefore gets to Major League Baseball and will swing at anything and go into prolonged slumps. And Salvador Perez, for everything we love for him and for as great as he's been, is subject to those stretches as well. And I mean, the list goes on and on. Michael Garcia, every guy the Royals have brought through their system is hyper aggressive. I actually looked at some data today on because I love the stat pitchers per plate appearance. Right, it's like kind of a similar way to measure aggressiveness. How many pitches is a player seeing in a given plate appearance? And we've only got like one guy that even does major league average. Jonathan India, who did not come up in the Royals system, is average. Everyone else is below average at that, and not just by a little. They're way below average at that so far this year, anyway. And throughout their careers, it's pretty much a similar story. So I would overhaul the whole hitting development system this offseason because we can't go through stretches where you have one of the best offensive players in the game and a bunch of guys who will go on long streaks of doing nothing. Mm-hmm. 2 games we've scored over 4 runs, Mark. 2.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They have to recognize that to some degree because they're bringing in guys from outside the system whose value to the team is essentially just that they were not brought up in the system because they do things that people in the system don't do, like take walks and see pitches, right? Like that's India's whole value. That's his whole thing. You bring him in because you want somebody who is not brought up in this system because they'll know how to take pitches. That's Canada's value. That's Biggio. Yep. All that stuff. So there must be some recognition up top that what this team is lacking is something that this system is not designed to give it, right? Which is patient hitters who will get on base, take good plate appearances. And as a result, and here's the flaw in their big system, the more aggressive hitters, they don't wait for a pitch that they can actually do damage on. So the Royals got a bunch of hits today, ended up scoring 4 runs. They only hit singles today, right? And they're going to have a bunch of hitters who only hit singles. Bobby Witt Jr., a great hitter, but he hits a ton of freaking singles. Why? Because he's not super choosy about what kind of strikes he's swinging at. And so
it's the same is true. So when he hits that weak grounder, he's going to leg it out to first.
He can leg it out, which is great. But you also want a guy like him with his kind of prodigious power to be driving the ball into gaps, hitting home runs, and that sort of thing. It doesn't make any sense as a philosophy. I understand that, like, yeah, the 2015 team, they did it this way. Guess what? The 2015 team was still a below average offensive unit. Their weighted runs created plus as a team was 99. Nothing super impressive in there. They scored runs because other teams made mistakes, but you don't want an offense that has to rely on other teams to make mistakes. And so if you want to put together a decent offense, a decent lineup, yeah, something's got to be done because I agree with you. I was like holding off on this, and I think they'll hold off until the offseason, but this hitting development is not what they want it to be right now.
And stop listening to the friggin' broadcasters who praise it because it's not the way to go.
That's just for fans out here. The team won't care what Rex Hudler and Ryan Lefevre say, but for fans, those two are wrong all the time. Do not listen to them. All right, Mike, it was a rough week, but I guess we could maybe scrounge together a couple strong performers. What'd you come up with?
I took the obvious one because after looking, I was like, there's nobody to pick from, and you hadn't picked yet. So I went ahead and swooped up the obvious one of Bobby Witt Jr., 9 for 29 with 3 doubles, a home run, 3 RBI, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. He did get thrown out on the bases again today, trying to steal second.
But I actually didn't have a problem with that stolen base attempt, right? Because he waited. He was on. He was. But what he did was he knew like how important that one run was. And so he got on to lead off the inning. Guys had chances to get him over, couldn't do it. And so he takes off with 2 outs knowing like, okay, we have 2 outs now. It's a much better play with 2 outs to go even if you're going to get smoked because maybe the catcher doesn't make a great throw. Maybe the pitcher takes an extra long time to home or something like that. And then 2 outs, you at least got a guy in scoring position. So actually it was a pretty strategic decision. Garcia did it as well, I think, the very next inning or 2 innings later.
Also thrown out. But no, he's got like I think a 13-game hitting streak or something going. He's doing the things he's supposed to be doing as a hitter to provide some offensive force to this lineup. But boy, right now it doesn't feel like you're going to score any runs until his number comes up in an inning, and then you got a chance, and that's a problem. But Bobby Witt Jr. has been great. Hopefully he can keep it going. I would take a little bit more patience from him to pick out some of those pitches that he can really drive, but you can't argue with a week like that.
I like what? You didn't tell us what he did last week.
I told you 9 for 29, 3 doubles, 1 home run. 3 RBI.
I wasn't paying attention.
1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and he got thrown out of the base once.
Yes. Uh, my strong performer for this week, I decided to go with Steven Cruz, mostly because there weren't a ton of guys to choose from, and it must have been pitching because hitting didn't do much. Steven Cruz got into 3 games, so he made 3 appearances, 2 innings pitched, 0 runs, 0 hits. He did give up 2 walks in one of those outings, and it was in the same outing. I remember it. But he also had 2 strikeouts in those 2 innings. I actually put him on here in part because I was impressed with the outing where he kind of got into a little bit of trouble. He kind of got himself into a little bit of trouble and then got himself out of it, which I think was really important for him. Like it's one thing to come to the major leagues and he's got command issues and we know that, but we saw him sort of the bad side of him with those command issues, but we saw him work himself out, right? Like that's what good stuff and strikeout ability does for you is it allows you to sometimes save yourself when you're in one of those bad situations. So it's nice to see him having success. Evan Sisk also had a little bit of success last week. Thought about going with him, but it was great to see from both of them coming up and contributing to this bullpen, a bullpen that needed a little bit of help at the bottom end of it. So it's good to have them. Mike, plenty of weak performers to choose from. Who did we go for on the weak side this week?
It was a smorgasbord of weak performers this week. Michael Massey, a guy that we thought and has in the past performed well in Yankee Stadium, did not perform well, not only in Yankee Stadium, but didn't do well in Detroit either. 4 for 21, 0 extra base hits, 1 RBI, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. He's the poster boy for the uber aggressive team that, can't consistently score runs. And I know he plays a solid second base, but at some point you have to say, Michael Massey, can you be a consistent performer? Because I'll take a guy with less power profile than Michael Massey, with even less defensive ability, if he's a consistent offensive performer. I don't want a week of 115, 120 rated runs created plus, and then 3 weeks of nothing. Give me some consistent, give me a 100 weighted runs created plus, and you're that all the time. Because we're going to win some games and then fall off a cliff. Like I can't take Michael Massey at bats anymore either. I can't take 3-pitch strikeouts anymore. It's a killing me on the inside. And yeah, so Michael Massey, get your shit together and learn how to drive pitches that are good for you and stop swinging at everything below the zone.
Yeah, it's rough. It was rough. And it's a combination of things. I think we're seeing like the Royals in this last stretch when they desperately didn't need a week's worth of terrible ball strike umpiring, got a week's worth of terrible ball strike umpiring, including a lot of below the zone stuff. And so Michael Massey was absolutely torn apart by a lot of that stuff, and he's just not swinging the bat at all well. And you're right. I mean, the consistency thing is, if you have a whole bunch of Michael Massey type hitters, you're bound to go into slumps where your team just literally cannot score at all. Like it's one thing if it's like, oh, we're just putting up 4 or 5 runs a game, but we can't really break out with a big game. Like, if we didn't have Bobby Witt Jr., the Royals would have been blanked multiple times in the last week worth of games. And so it's something he's got to address because that inconsistency is killer. I'm talking about a hitter who's been pretty inconsistent as well, and that is one Vinny Pasquantino. He is the team's first baseman, and the thing about being a first baseman is you have to hit, okay? He went 4 for 27 last week with 1 double, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. He is getting a lot less attention because Hunter Renfroe and MJ Melendez have been so bad, but Vinny Pasquantino has also struggled mightily, right? Like he did have a nice hit today, and it drove a run in, which was great. He is an interesting profile to look at statistically because he's swinging with plenty of bat speed. He's doing things you would want him to do, like hitting the ball in the air and pulling it. He's just not squaring up enough balls and getting enough exit velocity to actually be doing damage when he's doing it. That's what's rough for him right now. Will warm weather help? Sure. But he also might even look into like easing up on the bat speed a little bit. There are players who find it easier to square up a ball, to make solid contact if they're not swinging so hard. And he might need to look into something like that because not squaring the ball up right now is costing him a lot of offensive production. Mike, in a week that, sent a lot of people running for their Smiths album, what's your theme for this week?
Oh, I went with a depressing one. If you've ever seen the classic Vegas Vacation. I think a lot of us can relate to this. After old Clark Griswold gets cleaned out at a blackjack table. Hey, Mark, you ever been cleaned out at a blackjack table?
Have I ever been cleaned out at a blackjack table? When haven't I been cleaned out at a blackjack table?
After that happens, he looks up at the dealer and says, who just took all of his money, and says, "What can I do for $5?" And the dealer he's a comedian. I don't know his name, but he's a classic guy. He gives a classic line of, "Gee, I don't know. Buy a bullet and rent a gun." That's what it feels like right now to watch this offense hit. It feels like I need to buy a bullet and rent a gun. Because
other classic lines from that movie. Anybody ever told you you're bad luck? Those are my mother's dying words. But when you got your foot caught in a bear trap, you're covered in third-degree burns, you're about to say crazy things.
Yeah, it is a classic film. We understand that. But don't think of unnatural thoughts about your cousin, right? All right, go watch Vegas Vacation.
Underrated film.
Go watch Vegas Vacation. But yeah, that's how we're feeling about the offense right now. Like, what can we get for $5? That's about all we got. There's not a lot coming down the old pipe to help fix this offensive situation. That means the guys that are there are going to have to turn it around. If we're going to score runs and win games, we have to count on Salvador Perez. We have to count on Vinny Pasquantino. We have to count on Michael Massey. These guys have to produce offensively. And that's not even to talk about the Kyle Isbells and the, Michael Garcia needs to keep it going, and Canada's going to get a lot more playing time, and Hunter Renfroe is going to be in there. What the hell are you going to do with him? So, yeah, we've got to get something going here, or else it's going to get real dark.
Yeah, there is no roster solution for your 3, 4, and 5 hitter not hitting. There is nothing for that. Like, and it wasn't, and it's not like, oh, they should have signed an outfielder in the offseason. It's like, that's not a solution for this problem either, right? Like, the Salvador Perez, Vinny Pasquantino, Michael Massey not hitting. What was getting an outfielder? What's getting Taylor Ward in the offseason going to do to fix that, right? Like, that's not a thing. And so, if you're not hitting in the middle of your lineup, that's just something that has to get fixed. I have another classic sporting movie. That's Talladega Nights, which I'm actually not a fan of this movie, but this line, I'm not. And what sucks is it was a great premise, but it just didn't work out. But there is a line in there that got me thinking this week. And the line is, if you ain't first, you're last, right? And it makes me think, like, watching this whole week of baseball, I sort of had it in my mind, like, the Royals know that they can't get like second in this game, right? Like, there's no like, I'm getting second in this game, so we're good. Like that's what I started thinking. Like, one of my dark moments. I'm like, do they realize they need to win some of these games? Like, is that a thing that they understand? I know it's April, guys, but these ones count just as much because they're making some decisions that make you think that they're like, oh, not actually trying to win this one right in front of them, right? Like, so yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, Lucas Ursig comes on to pitch in like a 5-run game where the Royals are losing by like 5 or something like that. And it's like, okay, I remember when you didn't put him in for that one game that you blew right at the end there because you brought in Angel Zerpa, and yet now he's getting mop-up duty. It was a very sort of like moment where I'm like, oh, we played the, in like in blackjack or in poker, more likely, when you realize you've played the hand wrong, right? Like, that's what took place when Lucas Ursig was brought in to mop up a game because he needed to pitch because he hadn't pitched in a week. And you're like, oh, maybe I should have pitched him when I pitched Angel Zerpa, right? Like, but it's just
and then he ends up getting hurt. Yes.
Right.
Or taking a liner off the leg. The other crazy thing happened, a decision today. It didn't end up costing him, but I'm like, what are you doing exactly? And I understand the thought behind it. You intentionally walk, I think it was Riley Green, the lefty, in the 10th there. You just put the winning run on base.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, we'll bring in Schreiber to pitch against or maybe this wasn't an extras. I can't remember.
Estevez
that was
pitched.
an extra. Yeah, Estevez was the one who they intentionally walked him. And I'm like, and then did he walk? Did he end up walking the next guy anyway? I can't remember.
No, like, he went 3-0 to the next guy.
Oh yeah,
he didn't walk him. He went 3-0 to the next guy.
What are you doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. They bring. I guess the one I'm thinking of earlier was they brought in Schreiber to face of the righty. He immediately walks that righty.
That righty. Yeah. That happened.
And then you intentionally let the winning run on base. That seems like an interesting choice to me.
It is.
Yeah, some of these decisions that are being made are beyond me.
Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they will soon offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes starting in June. They'll offer strength and conditioning for athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
I need to be faster for reasons unrelated to athletics, but very related to stealing catalytic converters.
And of course, Greenwood. It's like a past. It's like a hobby there. And of course, All In still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
I get me some new knees. I'm hoping for a vertical jump similar to Luka Doncic, another husky fella like me.
Yeah, you're going to need like a rocket or something.
We're basically the same guy.
Yeah, I think so. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's allin-pt.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. I'm sorry, we have to keep talking about the offense. It would be disingenuous to talk about anything else. The offense is the determining factor of the team right now. I didn't choose it. They chose it by being so bad. They don't score, and so the Royals just keep losing. I don't have a clever or fun way to frame this conversation, so I'm just going to ask some questions, and we'll dig into it. Mike, recently the Royals dropped MJ for Mark Canha. They've also started utilizing Drew Waters more. He had 2 hits in the game today. Is this going to turn things around for this offense?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news or burst the bubble, but no. The answer is no. It's not going to turn it around. It might give you a small gain, and that's really all you're going to be able to hope for in the foreseeable future is a small gain here, a small gain there, because it really is going to turn on that middle of the order group that we've talked about improving. That's what it has to turn on. If you're looking for a big shift from what they're doing now to scoring runs, it'll happen when Salvi starts hitting, Vinny starts hitting, Michael Massey starts hitting, maybe Hunter Renfroe starts hitting. I don't foresee
that's
that
not going to happen.
But it'll happen when those guys turn it around. But that doesn't mean you can't add a little bit of value in a Mark Canha. Doesn't mean you can't add a little bit of value in maybe bringing somebody else up to play a corner outfield a majority of the time. And it doesn't mean that, Drew Waters isn't going to help you a little bit more. Like we've talked about it. It's really about marginal improvement of your 26-man roster as a whole, right? And so when Drew Waters comes up and replaces, let's say, an MJ Melendez, which is really kind of what's happening here because Canha was already up. When that happens, you're getting something a little bit better. You're getting a little bit of value from Waters that you were not getting from MJ Melendez. It's not a lot of value because Water didn't going to be that good either, probably, but you're getting a little bit of value there. If you can,
it might be a lot of value. Like let's say
Melendez was so low.
Yeah,
the marginal gain there is pretty big. But Waters isn't going to hit you 285.
No,
he's not going to be hitting balls out of the park consistently. He'll play a better defense.
Not really.
Well, Melendez was playing a pretty good defense, but he'll play a better defense than maybe some other guys you can put out there. He'll be able to run the bases okay, things like that. You'll get a little bit of value here and there from Drew Waters that you weren't getting from MJ Melendez. But those are small things. Okay, the big offensive turnaround doesn't come until the middle of the order. The guys you were counting on to be a big part of your offense become a big part of your offense.
Yeah, it's wild to me. I think that's 100% the case. The big shift, that happens then. Now, can they, right now they're not really even staying afloat. Can getting some replacements for these wildly underperforming hitters, can that help? Yeah, that raises your floor, and that's hugely important when you're basically a black hole in 3 slots of your lineup every night. Yeah, it's great if you can replace one of those with somebody who can hit. To me, it's wild how different the lineup feels with Canha in it, because you are replacing this like negative weighted runs created plus hitter in MJ Melendez with a guy who has been hitting well to start the season for one, but also who's always going to give you a professional plate appearance. And so just the whole at bat feels different, and he's just one spot in the lineup, but now I can count on that one. I can count on Maikel Garcia's. I can count on Bobby Witt Jr.'s to some degree, right?
I mean, Canha's going to end up hitting 3rd or 4th for us.
Right. Right now he's going to. He hit 4th today, I think. Yeah. because they moved Vinny down to 7.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
And it's clear that that's what Matt Quatraro wants. Matt Quatraro doesn't want Michael Massey type at bats. Matt Quatraro wants Mark Canha type at bats. Like you can see, and that must be what JJ wants too. They're not adding guys to this lineup or to this roster who are, 4% walk, 15% strikeout type hitters. They're adding guys to the lineup who are like 10 to 12% walk, still that 15% strikeout, maybe even as high as 20, but they're going to see a lot of pitches. They're going to put together a professional plate appearance. Like that seems to be at this point table stakes for getting on this roster. They're tired of I'm going to go into a completely dormant hitting slump for 3 weeks at a time. They're tired of that, it looks like. Mike, what do you think the next steps need to be? Obviously trading Canha for MJ or Drew Waters for MJ, however you look, will help raise the floor of this team. What do they still got to do though? What's next?
I honestly don't know. We've talked about losing Renfroe, getting rid of Renfroe, or you could do this too. I mean, you want to send Tyler Tolbert back down to bring up somebody, but bringing up somebody to play a corner outfield. We've talked about John Rave. You mentioned Cam Devaney to do like an infield and then move somebody to the outfield kind of a thing.
We saw Garcia in right field yesterday. Part of me wonders if that's not in preparation for something like Cam Devaney, Nick Lofton, something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, but I mentioned this previously. Those are small gains. That's not going to get you the big turnaround. The middle of the order guys have to make that drastic change in order to do that. That's the next step that needs to be addressed. You've got to start. I don't know. The way to shake it up in a perfect world.
In a world
where the Royals could score a damn run. Salvador Perez would never be your 4 hitter. Okay.
No.
He is a guy who's been generationally kind of, I guess, if you look into his generation, he's been one of the best defensive catchers of his generation, one of the best offensive catchers of his generation. But because of his offensive profile and the streakiness of him as a hitter, you would never be choosing to put him 4th to be a run producer because it's so streaky when he does that. He would just be gravy kind of in the second tier of your lineup. He'd be hitting 7th or maybe, something 6th or 7th.
6th
and
if he's got to.
You'd be saying like, okay, he's going to be driving in runs, but like those kind of secondary opportunities. You would have a much more consistent person. If you want to look at like, oh, well, what are you talking about for a consistent cleanup hitter? Look at Jose Abreu when he was with the White Sox, right? He wasn't, he was an all-star kind of caliber player, but he was insane consistent. Okay.
Look at Freddie Freeman.
Look at Freddie Freeman. Insane consistent. Just guys you absolutely know what you're going to get as a run producer in the 4 spot. That is not Salvador Perez and never has been. Okay. And so when you construct a lineup based around a guy who has been that volatile offensively, it's never going to work out. Right. And you were hoping that Vinny would come in and be that consistent force. But honestly, has he done that throughout a season?
No. Honestly, he's going in the wrong direction. He is getting more aggressive. He is getting it's not the right direction.
He's becoming less consistent than what he was earliest in when he first came into Major League Baseball. And so the short answer is I do not know what the next step is. It could be it could be bringing up a guy to get some small gains, drastically shaking up the lineup. Is it Canha's now batting 3rd just because we have to have somebody who can give us a good plate appearance behind Bobby Witt Jr.? Is it maybe he's moving to the leadoff spot? I don't know. Maybe it's Michael Garcia moving around because he's been a little bit better. I don't know, but it's got to change quickly because they're getting into a softer stretch of their schedule this next week, perhaps, and need to capitalize big time.
Yeah, they do. And honestly, I think Canha will hit further up for a little while anyway. And it's going to be an interesting trip through the heart of their lineup because it's going to be right-hander Bobby Witt Jr., right-hander Mark Canha, right-hander Salvador Perez. And so when
relief stays there,
when relief hit, well, who else are you going to put in there?
You put Vinny there, and
I guess you could, right? But what's the difference, honestly, at this point? Honestly, the next move for me is, of course, lose Renfroe. Like more addition by subtraction, right? The Royals have, I think, 4 hitters in the bottom 30 in weighted runs created plus. I think Michael Massey's one of them. Hunter Renfrow is one of them. MJ Melendez was one of them. And then I think also for qualified hitters, Salvi and Vinny are both in there as well. And so lose Hunter Renfrow, and that will help just by getting somebody who can be 80% of league average, right? Huge help there. Lose him, call someone up. The person I'm calling up, Nick Lofton. Why? He has a 27% walk rate. He has a 35% line drive rate. I'm ready to see if that can make it in Major League Baseball. And so, yeah, he's not going to hit 20 home runs and probably won't even hit 15 or 10. But if he can get on base at a 350 clip, I'm happy. Whatever he does else, I'm happy. He's just another Mark Canha if he can do that. I'll take it, right? Like at this point, I think that is more useful than what they have going on elsewhere. And then increased rotation for underperformers. If you're not going to hit Michael Massey, guess what you're going to be doing? Riding pine. I have a second base replacement in Jonathan India. You can go play second, right? Like then I can get Mark Canha on left field. I can play Nick Lofton in right or some sort of combination, right? Like I think more rotation for Vinny Pasquantino and Michael Massey until they're ready to start hitting is probably not a bad idea. Mike, what's it going to take to get Salvador Perez and Vinny Pasquantino right? If it comes down to that, what's it going to take?
Well, I went looking when I saw this question. I went digging through the data, and honestly, the only thing I could really come up with was warmer weather. You know, Vinny has essentially the same average exit velocity he's had in the past. He had last year anyway, which he performed okay before the injury last year. Not great. You know, I think he had but he's not even coming close to those numbers right now.
No.
So average exit velocity is roughly the same. He's got a higher bat speed than what he had last year. He's pulling the ball in the air more than he did last year, which gets him his best outcomes. The only thing that you might say is his launch angle has gone up pretty drastically. I'm wondering if that's not a bad thing.
It is,
because he maybe bring that down a little bit if he can. You know, maybe he made an adjustment, maybe he didn't. I don't really know, but it's not working out for him because he's hitting some decent exit velocity. He just doesn't quite have the bat speed to get the ball out, and so we're seeing a lot of WTP from.
It's not a bat speed issue. His bat speed is 83rd percentile. It's not a bat speed issue. His bat is going fast enough. He's not squaring them up.
And that's fine.
That's the issue.
Then he needs to do something to either lower the launch angle or square them up more, because that leads to a lot of like lazy fly balls into right. So we got to get him fixed. And the only thing I can think of, Salvi is honestly the same player he's always been. There's nothing changing with Salvador Perez. You mentioned the bat speed has slowed down a little. It's a very, very little. It's marginal. Yeah. It's nothing.
It's not that bad.
He's pulling the ball quite a bit, which is good for him. He's got good exit velocity, good launch angle even. He's just, everything I've seen is he's just having bad luck. And because he completely relies on batted balls, he's going to have stretches of bad luck where he produces nothing offensively. He doesn't give you anything walk-wise, on-base ability, any of that. All of his on-base ability is tied to his batting average. And so until that swings back, that's why you want a guy like Salvador Perez hitting 6 or 7 and not 4. But I digress. I already mentioned that, so we don't have to talk about
easy fix for Salvi, better luck. That's what he needs, basically. He's had bad luck, but you live and die by the batted ball when you never take walks. It's like Kyle Isbell. He never takes walks either. And so he's going to have some hot stretches, and he's going to have some real cold stretches. That's how it goes, right? Like
and Michael Massey.
And Michael Massey is also.
And Hunter Renfrow.
Yep. Vinny may need to sacrifice some bat speed, I think. He's done some bat speed training in the offseason, I think over the course of the last 2 years, and it's helped. But sometimes that gets you into a mode where you're swinging maybe a little harder than you should be to produce that bat speed, and you're having trouble squaring up the ball. It is way more important. Let me put it this way. If somebody says, what's more important, swinging really hard or swinging really fast, having high bat speed, or catching it on the barrel? Catching it on the barrel is way more important. Catching it on the barrel is the thing that will actually produce exit velocities for you, which is why you see some guys like Mookie Betts and stuff like that who have very low bat speed and still create really good exit velocities because they catch it on the barrel a lot. And so,
a historical example, look at Kirk Gibson's famous home run. The
bat
speed on that is nothing. He hit it
probably in the 50s
on the button.
Yes, probably in the 50s. It's really bad. But you can succeed without that as long as you're getting the barrel on the ball. And so he needs to find a way to get the barrel on the ball more. I'm hoping it's just an early season, finding my timing, finding my swing kind of a thing. But we'll see on that front. Mike, is it time to start talking about a change at hitting coach? I know there are people who started throwing that out there. I know you're like, change the hitting development. Do you want to see the hitting coach out sometime in season here?
I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it because you have these guys. They came up through a Royals system. This hitting coach was not involved in that system, but you work with them all off season. If you have not been able to, even in the slightest, get some of those players to identify premium pitches for them better and swing at the ones that aren't those less, then what are you doing?
Good
Right?
question.
Why can't we hit fastballs?
That's a great question.
Why can't we hit starting pitchers? These are
Also
all
good.
things on a hitting coach. It's your job to prepare them to face the starting pitcher. It's your job to prepare them for fastballs. Like, outside of the fact that these guys are way too aggressive, which may or may not have anything to do with the current Major League Baseball hitting coach, and I'm blanking on the guy's name right now.
Alex
I
Zumwalt.
think of Zumwalt. I'm thinking of his assistant, Duran. But so that may not have anything to do the amount of aggressiveness that they have. But you've had several years to work with or a couple of years to work with these guys now. You'd think you could at least improve upon that. The stuff that we've seen no improvement on is the things I just mentioned. Why can't we hit starting pitchers? Why do we struggle so much with fastballs? Like, this is insanity to me.
Usually that's the one people do best on.
Exactly. And so I think if you went and made a change at hitting coach, one, you got to be smart about it. You got to be bringing in a guy who's going to fit this coming up off season when you hopefully make a big overhaul to your hitting development system as a whole. But I would be completely for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think that's fair. I don't know practically that doing it in season would actually improve the performance of players this year, just because there aren't people just out there chilling, waiting to be hired as hitting coaches who you would actually want to do that job. And so it might take waiting until the off season, but it's completely fair to bring up the notion that a change of hitting coach, it might be time for that because one, we aren't seeing the type of improvement you would hope to see at the major league level, right? We're not seeing, that's the thing. It used to be like general consensus and general wisdom that as a player aged and matured in the major leagues, they got more patient. Like it used to be that was the case. That does not happen for the Royals. Salvador Perez maybe has gotten 10% more patient over the course of his career, but it's nowhere near what you would expect from somebody who's been hitting for as long as he has. Michael Massey has not gotten any more patient. If anything, he might have gotten less patient. Right? Like, and that, Bobby Witt Jr. is not really getting any more patient. And so
we've seen Vinny get less patient.
Vinny has gotten less patient, right? And so I don't know what kind of advice that they're getting, but it's not a recipe for consistent offensive production. And we're seeing that play out on the field all the time. And eventually you just have to be held accountable. Whether or not this is not a comment on how good of a hitting coach Alex Zumwalt is. Sometimes you just didn't find the right context. It's just not working right now. They just need to hear another voice, whatever. But you're a hitting coach. When the offense isn't performing, you're the first person to go. Okay. And so it's now been since September of 2024. So how long do you wait? You know what I'm saying? Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy Mike and I do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Not too much fun. Too much fun, and you end up with a second family in Juarez. I've heard. I've heard.
Yeah. Eric was one of the top real estate agents in the Phoenix area to end 2024 because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
Trust me, you don't want to end up next to a world-class tool bag. It's not fun.
It is not. Find Eric Oxer on West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. The Royals head home after a long, disappointing road trip and immediately get a day off. Good, they need it. Even though they won today, I want them to just take a brain break. Then the Colorado Rockies come to town, followed by the Houston Astros. This is an important homestand. Neither of the teams is playing very well. It's a chance to heal some of the damage from this road trip. Mike, tell us about what many consider the worst organization in Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, if you look at the bottom of everything, you're going to see the Chicago White Sox, obviously, and the Colorado Rockies. And if you look at the bottom of offensive things, you're going to see the Kansas City Royals as well. But the Rockies of Colorado are currently 3-16, which is good for last in the NL West. They've only won 3 games, huh? That's pretty bad.
Yeah, they're terrible. Oof. Up and down the organization, just terribly run organization.
In that first game, we're going to get Chris Bubich, which will be on Tuesday. That's going to be Chris Bubich versus Ryan Feltner, a 28-year-old righty out of Ohio State. 4.82 ERA and a 1.61 whip, which is pretty bad for the whip. 4-seam fastball in the low to mid-90s, a changeup, a slider, a sweeper, a sinker, and a curveball. He's not a big strikeout guy at 19.8% strikeout rate. He doesn't necessarily induce weak contact, but so far he's kept hitters from finding optimal launch angles. A lot of kind of a fly ball heavy kind of guy. Should be able to hopefully hit him though, right? Not a great fastball.
They should be able to hit every pitcher they have.
Second game will be Michael Lorenzen versus Herman Marquez. You say he's a 30-year-old righty out of Venezuela. It feels like this guy's been in the league for like 20 years. Am I crazy?
Maybe. I don't know. There may be multiple Herman Marquezes. I'm not entirely sure.
But he's got an 8.27 ERA and a 1.84 whip. So he's gotten knocked around quite a bit this year. Fastball at 95 to 96, a sinker, a knuckle curve, a slider, and a changeup. He's got horrible strikeout numbers. Cannot miss the bats. He allows plenty of hard contact. The sinker's been pulverized. He has been a punching bag so far in Major League Baseball this year. Let's keep it that way, huh, Royals? Let's show what we can do. The third game is going to be the really interesting one to watch. It's going to be Cole Reagans versus Chase Dollander, a 23-year-old righty out of the University of Tennessee. And if I'm not mistaken, was Dollander just drafted last year or the year before that?
I want to say the year before that.
He was a first-round pick 2 years ago, I guess then, of the Rockies. Big-time pitching prospect for them. But he's got a 7.36 ERA and a 1.64 whip, so he's gotten beat up too. He's got a fastball that goes 97 to 98, a cutter, a curveball, and a changeup. Throws hard, but the hitters hit the fastball really hard. Now, we know the Royals struggle hitting fastballs, so we'll see on that one.
Yeah.
We'll see. So Chase Dollander throws his fastball 53% of the time. We'll see if Royals hitters can catch up to it and do some damage. Got to win the Rockies series. You lose this Rockies series, that's going to send some fans running for razor blades.
Okay? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely will. I will say this. You know how sometimes, Mike, when we say things about the team and stuff like that, I feel like some people think to themselves like, well, you think you could do better? Looking at the Rockies, yes, absolutely I could do better. If I were running this organization, I would do better than what they're doing, because what they're doing
is a pretty low bar, but yeah.
It's a very low bar. But hey, they're one of the 30 major league teams.
That's true.
It's it's sad and wild. The Houston Astros will come to town after that. They're 10-10, so 500 exactly. That's good for third in the AL West. Offensively, they're not doing great this year. Only an 88 weighted runs created plus as a team. That's 22nd in Major League Baseball. They're getting good years from Isaac Paredes, the king of pulling the ball in the air. They're getting a decent season from Jose Altuve too, but slightly struggling to start the year, Yordan Alvarez. Now, his struggling is a 93 weighted runs created plus, not a minus 16 weighted run or whatever MJ Melendez is doing. And so struggling is a relative term here. On the pitching side,
by the way, would be second or third on the Royals right now.
Yes, second or third total. On the pitching side, they have a 3.66 ERA as a team. That's good for ninth in Major League Baseball. Getting good seasons from Hunter Brown. A guy named Ryan Gusto, who might just recently be starting. He's only gotten a couple starts, but he's gotten something like 6 or 7 total appearances. But their starting rotation isn't killing it up and down the rotation, but they do have a very good bullpen. And so we'll see what it looks like. Maybe we can get some starters from that Houston team. Let's end this week's episode like we end every episode. What do you say, Mike?
Why not?
I love routine. Let's do it. Mike, tell us, we end our episodes by talking about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, tell us what's interesting to you outside the world of baseball since last week when we last heard from you.
Oh, this is accounting things. So, of course, it's interesting.
Hey, who doesn't love accounting? Am I right?
This is my word of warning to all the good people out there, all the weekly weirdos. And here it is. Check your pay stubs. Okay? Check them every single time you get paid. Go over that bad boy. Take some time to do it. It can save you big time dollars. And here's how. Here's my example. We went to do our taxes. I did them at the very end, like a procrastinating idiot. And what I discovered was, whilst doing my taxes, and my wife has a professional job. She doesn't make a ton of money, but she makes a decent amount of money. That is roughly what I make as a teacher. And I discovered that her employer last year only took out $900 for federal income taxes. Now, my wife and I have never had to pay into the federal government for taxes, but this year we got quite a hefty tax bill. And it was all because my wife is not a person who is in the habit of checking her pay stub to see that they're taking money out of it. And so it's not necessarily her fault. She didn't make an error in doing this. They made an error in how much they took out. And, there's no fighting that, right? You can't go back and say, oh, you should have taken money out, right?
And the IRS won't be like, oh, yeah, we understand. That's okay. Yeah, rough stuff there.
We ended up having to pay a buttload of money because they weren't taking out any money. And I've caught mistakes on them taking PTO that I didn't use, them paying me. I've caught them both paying me extra and underpaying me. And I work at a school district where there's not a lot of changes in your paycheck on a regular basis. And they're still making errors. And so here's what I'm saying is, the people who set these payroll things up, most of them are not like accounting professionals or payroll professionals. A lot of them are maybe have HR backgrounds, some of them, but a lot of them don't. And so you really need to go in there and check and make sure they're not screwing you over. We've actually we just caught something in the last month from my wife's new employer where they weren't taking out the correct amount of taxes as well. And so, you have to look at your pay stub every single month or they will rob you if they can. I promise they will do that. And I've done it for multiple employers. I've caught things and it just, you have to do it. You have to stay on top of them because a lot of the people doing it, they don't really understand what's going on. And even if they do, mistakes get made. And so you've got to, you got to look at your stuff all the time. So check your pay stub religiously.
Yes, wage theft, a huge thing in the United States, $1 trillion business for corporations. So make sure you're looking at that. That's really important. I'm talking about planned rest. As many of you may know, I took on extra work about 9 months ago and have been essentially doing either 2 jobs or 1.5 jobs for the entirety of the school year. So since August of last year. And so I'm real effing tired. And it's coming through in many ways. I'm getting increasingly lazy. Physical appearance for sure. I look terrible. But also, I'm about to come to the end of the school year. And when the end of the school year gets here, I will have the first summer I've ever had off in 4 years or so. And so I am planning for the week after the school year ends, and it is just delightful. It is a delightful time to take 20 minutes and be like, what am I going to do during my week off when I don't have to do jack shit? And I'm like, just reveling in the notion that I'm going to play video games and sleep in and go get breakfast at my favorite breakfast place and all this sort of stuff. Like, I am excited for this planned rest. But I see a lot of people who don't want to take rest and don't make rest sort of part of their processes. And so I'm telling you, the wise thing to do as I get older, I learn, plan rest just like you're going to plan social events, just like you're going to plan going out and having fun, just like you're going to plan work things. Plan the things that are just going to recharge your battery, because the more you're aware of them and the more you give yourself that time, the far more productive and easier your life goes when you're not resting, right? Because, I'm going to take this week off and then start doing other sort of work-related things when I get back. And I know that getting back, I'll be so much more productive than I was before I took this planned rest. Just a little advice from an old wise man. That's me. That's all we have for you this week. We will be back again next week. Make sure you're subscribing to that Royals Weekly Substack. If you'd like an episode on Wednesday, Mike will come out with one on
Thursday.
Friday.
Be Thursday and
No,
Friday.
no, because remember, we're dropping them on Wednesday right after we record them now.
Oh yeah,
that's the new. Yeah,
that's awesome.
We're dropping our midweek episode on Wednesday at around 4 o'clock from now on. And so you'll get one on Wednesday, you'll get one on Friday, you'll get at least one piece of written content. Make sure you're subscribed to royalsweekly.substack.com. We'll see you again next Monday at the very least. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.